The possibility of a Rudy Gobert to Chicago Bulls trade has been gaining traction within the NBA, especially after the Minnesota Timberwolves' loss in the Western Conference playoffs. In one proposal suggested by analysts, the Bulls would receive Gobert, while the Timberwolves would retain Vučević, Lonzo Ball, and 2 second-round picks. This type of trade reflects Chicago's search for urgent defensive reinforcements, while Minnesota considers restructuring its roster to better meet expectations after a campaign that ended without a title. If you follow the NBA and the Bulls, like this article and subscribe so you don't miss any important action. The next few weeks could determine the course of the season. Gobert, a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, has a respectable career in rim protection, rebounding, and overall defensive presence. In the most recent regular season, he averaged close to 12 points, just over 10 rebounds, 1.8 assists, and about 1.4 blocks per game, along with a reasonable number of blocks and an intimidating presence in the paint. In the playoffs, however, his performance declined. Fewer points, fewer rebounds, and less of an offensive impact, although his defensive importance remains recognized. This contrast between his defensive reputation and his offensive limitations and versatility at certain times is central to understanding the pros and cons of a potential trade. Hoops Wire +2 Yahoo Sports +2. For the Bulls, the main argument in favor of bringing in Gobert is to bolster their interior defense. Chicago has faced criticism for failing to consistently protect the rim in decisive games. The current roster includes players with decent offensive ability, but there are defensive holes, defensive rebounding, vulnerability on drives, and too many points conceded near the basket. Gobert would have the potential to mitigate many of these issues, transforming the team's defensive style, allowing forwards and point guards to press more fearlessly, knowing their rims are protected. Furthermore, his experience and track record could act as an anchor for young talent, aiding collective development. Hoops Wire +1. On the other hand, there are significant challenges. First, Gobert's contract isn't small. He's expected to earn something in the $35 million range next season. This has implications for the team's salary cap, potentially limiting other moves or straining the budget. In trades of this size, there's always a risk of imbalance. Giving away too many future assets or useful players in exchange for a veteran who, while excellent, is past his prime in certain areas or whose offensive production is questionable in high-pressure moments. Furthermore, Gobert at 33 is approaching the stage where his fitness begins to take a toll, injuries become more likely, and adjustments are necessary to maintain performance. Hoops Wire Minnesota, for its part, would have to weigh whether the trade is worth it. Vučević, while not Gobert's rim protector, offers more than just a presence in the paint. He has a more varied offensive game, can create space with mid-range or above-the-paddle shots, and can participate as an offensive pivot in sets that require mobility. Lonzo Ball brings game vision, off-ball defense, and offensive rebuilding passages that the Wolves could find useful in rebuilding or diversifying their inside-outside game. Second-round picks, while less valuable than first-round picks, offer flexibility or depth options. Therefore, from Minnesota's perspective, the question is it worth giving up an elite defensive piece to gain more balance and offensive and financial flexibility? Hoops Wire +1. Another point that arises is the immediate impact on team culture, chemistry, and style of play. Gobert is recognized as one of the best defenders in the league, but he's never been someone whose presence alone solves all defensive problems. He relies on teammates who know how to rotate well, close passing lanes, anticipate the other team's offensive plays, and compensate when he comes out to contest or block. If the Bulls bring in Gobert, having the center isn't enough. They need to adjust defensive schemes, rotate forwards and wings well, and ensure there's support for offensive and defensive rebounding. Otherwise, Gobert could end up being overwhelmed, or his presence, while intimidating, may not produce the expected results. Hoops Habit +1. Additionally, there's the aging and durability factor. Gobert's age and physical history indicate that while he's still competitive, his physical performance ceiling may no longer reach the levels it once was a few years ago. There have been times when he hasn't performed as effectively in the playoffs, as he did in other regular seasons. This creates uncertainty for fans and management. Is it worth investing heavily in something that may not perform when the team needs it most? Or is it better to use the assets to build something more balanced, perhaps with a younger pivot or multiple pieces rather than a single-star interior defender? Clutch points +1. Financially, the trade would require adjustments to the players' contracts, including negotiations, salary matching, and potential future extensions. If the Bulls acquire Gobert, they will incur a high cost that will likely require sacrifices, either giving up other key players, limiting other signings, or touching the salary cap, which could have implications for future cap space, trade flexibility, or the incorporation of emerging talent. For Minnesota, the trade could free up cap space while reducing the commitment of veteran players with hefty contracts, but it also means giving up the defensive stability that Gobert brings and a key player in their identity. Hoops Wire +1. This hypothetical trade also sheds new light on some of the Bulls' needs: rim defense, rebounding, paint protection, as well as veteran leadership and psychological impact. If Gobert arrives, he automatically becomes the team's defensive protagonist, drawing attention from opponents, requiring double teaming or offensive modifications. He can force opponents to change their schemes near the basket, which opens up counter-offensive opportunities. This, if leveraged well, can transform close games or decisive moments. However, it can also create dependency. If Gobert is out or limited, the Bulls could suffer greatly in his place. Therefore, managing minutes and health will be crucial. Fan reaction is also a relevant factor. Many Bulls fans have been clamoring for defensive reinforcements or greater contrasts on the roster. Players who can score, protect the rim, block, rebound, and intimidate defensively. Gobert's arrival would be seen as a major statement of intent, demonstrating the team's serious desire to compete with the Eastern Conference's best. But there's also the risk of disappointment. High expectations combined with underperformance, injuries, or incompatible playing styles can generate harsh criticism. The narrative of promising reinforcement who doesn't deliver in the playoffs could quickly emerge if the team fails to deliver in decisive moments. For comparison, other teams have made similar trades or signed veteran defensive centers to try to improve their defensive performance. Looking at recent examples, teams that enter the game with a strong defensive mindset but lack a balanced offensive structure have suffered. If Gobert's addition comes without offensive improvements or roster adjustments at forward or point guard, the Bulls could enter a cycle of low-scoring games or over-reliance on extreme defensive efforts. This can wear players down physically and mentally, in addition to making their style of play predictable. If opponents perceive the team as overly reliant on rim protection, they may exploit it with pick-and-rolls, drives, or shooters far from the paint. Another dimension is the future. What this type of trade would do to the pipeline of young players, draft picks, and future financial margin. If the Bulls use picks or young assets to acquire Gobert, these assets will no longer be available to build alternatives or depth at positions that also need attention: small forwards, defensive backs, point guards with consistent creative or scoring abilities. Sometimes sacrificing the future for immediate impact works, but without strategic vision or flexibility, it can be detrimental in the years to come. Minnesota, by letting go of Gobert, could pursue a more subtle rebuild, trading for useful players now, freeing up salary cap space, or pursuing young players with growth potential. From a results standpoint, the real metric that matters is, would Gobert's Bulls improve enough to advance in the playoffs or even compete for a title? The West and East have increasingly complete teams. In the East, teams with depth, athletic forwards, playmaking guards, balanced scoring, and versatile centers, or well-orchestrated team defense, have an advantage. Gobert can bring defensive dominance near the rim, but if the Bulls don't have the rest of the structure to support that style, a reliable offense, guards who defend and rebound, a strong bench, the room for improvement may be limited. In short, trading Rudy Gobert to the Bulls is attractive, full of potential and risk. It could change Chicago's defensive landscape, improve rim protection, rebounding, and intimidation, instill confidence in the rest of the players, and transform competitive games. But it could also be costly. Future assets, significant contracts, physical wear and tear, and high expectations. The ultimate question is whether the front office is willing to pay this price, whether the players agree, whether the style of play is acceptable, whether Gobert's health holds up, and whether the team is comfortable sacrificing part of the future for immediate hope. If you've read this far, leave a like and subscribe to follow all the NBA negotiations, in-depth tactical analysis, and everything about the Bulls and Gobert.